Well, in the early days, a lot of the research that was being done here was about new user interfaces and graphical user interfaces. So being able to move a mouse and click a button instead of type in command line stuff. So that's where GVU started. And gradually the scope of GVU broadened outside of graphics. So it became just the term GVU instead of actually standing for graphics and visualization and usability. It's an organization that houses some lab space here in Technology Square, but also reaches out across campus to build collaborations between computer science and other disciplines like the arts or engineering, which is why it's nice that it's located here in TSRB, because there's different labs across TSRB that work together underneath this umbrella of GVU.
So every year GVU comes out with research and engagement grants. And so for our previous engagement grant, it was all about mixing technology or technologists and artists together to see what they can produce. And my interest with these grants has always been about reviving old projects, because there's a lot of really interesting pieces of tech and nuggets within how that technology was designed, but if it doesn't necessarily go anywhere, sometimes it sits on a shelf and just sits there forever. So with this engagement grant, we wanted to create this exhibition detailing the history of GVU with these different research threads that are around the room, but also take some of this older technology that GVU pioneered and kind of put new life into it through the technology that exists today.
So that's why the exhibition is called Nostalgic Futures. It's about like, what did we think the future was going to be like? Was it going to be Jetsons like tooting around in like hover cars? I mean, we might still get there.
So the research faculty and students and staff that were affiliated with GVU, what did they think the web was going to look like, and how were we going to be interacting with it over the future?
For instance, this is Krakatoa Chronicle, which was developed here at Georgia Tech, and it looks like a newspaper. And so that's kind of the idea in the early days of like, oh, a newspaper will just be a newspaper, but it'll be online. Instead of now we see websites like CNN that like feature content and move things around, and it doesn't look like a newspaper.
So another domain that GVU had a big impact on was augmented and virtual reality research. And so this is the Augmented Reality Pit. This was used as a test, or is used as a test bed for research studies. And in the past, when they were using this, you'd have to build your own head-mounted displays. They're really expensive. You need a lot of money, so tens of thousands of dollars, if not $100,000 to use this. But this was one of the projects that we kind of revitalized with newer tech. So this is just using an Oculus. Instead of taking a ton of time to revamp this, it took very little time, and it's much easier and cheaper.
GVU has been very helpful not only to the projects that say GVU stamped on them, but also to other projects across campus. Many of the ubiquitous computing projects that you see around campus, GVU has its fingers in a lot of those, because it gives out seed grants that help start projects that maybe wouldn't have the funding to get off the ground, and then people see it's a good idea, and then people are able to find funding in other places because GVU gave them that initial seed grant. One of the projects that I personally worked on that had a GVU seed grant was the electronic textile swatch book, which is here's some of the swatches here that are in the exhibit. The idea here was not only how do we create interfaces out of fabric that you can use to control things, but how do you get computer scientists to work together with fashion designers and interior designers. And that really is in the heart of GVU's spirit, which is this idea of transdisciplinary collaboration. GVU is really good at creating these industry partnerships. They have an industry advisory board. The idea being that if you're in a corporation and you want to work with researchers or academics on Georgia Tech campus, GVU is a great place to start. So you talk to GVU, they may set you up with a research scientist and an academic, set up some meetings to be able to really start that research in the right direction.